Hey guys, tonight we are heading deep into the past, to a place where libraries weren't made of stone and paper, but of flesh and blood. We're going to the heart of the old Mali Empire, in West Africa, a realm of shimmering heat, powerful kings, and stories so vast they had to be stored in the minds of specially trained people. Imagine a world without a single book, where your entire culture, your laws, your history, your identity, is carried in the memory of your neighbor. Tonight, you are going to become one of those people. You are going to become a griot, a living, breathing archive. But here's a little reality check before we start. The training is so intense, the mental discipline so absolute, that by the standards of the 13th century, you probably won't survive this. The sheer volume of information you will be forced to memorize would likely break a modern mind. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. As always, I'd love to see where and when you're listening from, so drop your city and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you notice is the heat. It's not just in the air, it's in the ground, radiating up through the soles of your bare feet. It's a constant, pressing weight that settles on your shoulders the moment the sun claws its way above the horizon. Your world is the color of dust, reddish-brown dust that gets into your throat, your eyes, and the whorls of your fingerprints. It coats the scattered baobab trees, those ancient, upside-down giants whose thick trunks seem to hold the wisdom of centuries. You live in a small village of round, mud-brick huts clustered together for shade and safety, a tiny island of human life in the vast, whispering expanse of the West African savanna. Life here is measured not by clocks, but by the sun's journey across the sky and the slow, rhythmic cycle of seasons, the long, thirsty dry spell, and the explosive, life-giving rains. Your days are a loop of chores. You chase goats, you help. Your mother pound millet into flour, and you listen. In your world, listening isn't passive. It's an act of survival. You listen to the chatter of the market, where merchants who have walked 1,000 miles argue over the price of salt blocks. Precious as gold. In fact, for a time in this part of the world, it was literally traded pound for pound. At its peak in the early 14th century, the Mali Empire you're a part of controlled the continent's most vital gold and salt mines, making its rulers, the Munsas, almost unimaginably wealthy. The stories of Musa Musa's pilgrimage to Mecca, where he gave away so much gold that he destabilized the economy of Egypt for a decade, are still told in whispers, a testament to the power that flows through this land. But that grand, sweeping history is just a shimmering mirage on the horizon for you. Your reality is the village, the family, the here and now. And in your village, there is one man who everyone listens to. He is the jelly, or as he is known in the French that will one day wash over this land, the griot. He is not the chief. He is not the strongest warrior or the wealthiest trader. He is something else entirely. He is old, his face a beautiful, cracked map of the very history he carries. When he speaks, a hush falls over the village square. When he plucks the strings of his strange instrument, a gourd-and wood contraption with a long neck, the sound seems to pull memories out of the very air. He is your village's library. Not a building full of dusty scrolls that can burn or rot, but a living, breathing, walking archive. He can sing the story of your great-great-great-grandfather's moment, of courage in a forgotten skirmish. He can recite the precise lineage of the village chief back 20 generations, a tangled web of names and deeds that proves the chief's right to rule. He knows the ancient laws, the cures for sickness found in roots and leaves, and the silly, bawdy songs that make the women blush and the men roar with laughter. You watch him, fascinated and a little terrified. The weight of what he carries in his head seems impossible. You can barely remember all the names of your cousins, but this man holds the entire history of your people. He is a living bridge to the ancestors, the guardian of the collective soul. To you, he is magic. You sometimes see him walking by the river, his lips moving silently, his eyes focused on something no one else can see. He isn't just recalling facts. He's walking through the corridors of the past, checking on the residents of his own mind. Historians still argue whether the title griot originally implied a lower social status, almost that of a servant, or if they were always considered a distinct and respected professional caste from the very beginning. Looking at this man, who can make the chief listen with rapt attention and who holds the social glue of the entire community in his voice, the answer seems obvious. He is no mere servant. He is a pillar of your world. His current apprentice is a boy named Seko, only a few years older than you. Sometimes you see the master drilling him, and it's a brutal thing to witness. The boy stands in the shade of a mango tree, sweat beading on his brow, reciting names. Just names. An endless, cascading river of them. For every name he gets wrong, for every hesitation, he receives a sharp rap on the knuckles or a stern, disappointed glare that seems to hurt even more. The master isn't just teaching him songs. He's forging a new kind of mind in the boy, a mind built for total, instantaneous recall. It's less like school and more like sharpening a blade, day after day, until it can split a hair. It's a strange thought, but while you're slathering on your daily sun protection, a thick paste made from shea butter mixed with crushed, dried crocodile dung that gives everyone a slightly grayish, scaly sheen but works wonders against the punishing sun, you wonder what it would be like to have a mind like that. The crocodile goo is a quirky fact of life here, a bit of practical magic that no one questions. The idea of holding a library in your head feels like a different kind of magic altogether. You start to mimic him in secret. When you're out with the goats, you chant the names of your ancestors as far back as you know them. You make up little tunes for the list of chores your father gives you. You find that rhythm helps you remember. A list is just a list, but a song is a story, a living thing with a heartbeat. You try to remember the patterns in the weaver's cloth, the sequence of beads on your mother's bracelet. Your world is full of patterns, and you realize that memory is just the act of seeing them. It's a game you play, a silent secret that makes the long, hot days pass a little faster. You have no idea that you are, in your own small way, taking the first steps down a path that will consume your entire life. One evening, as the sky bleeds from orange to deep indigo and the first stars appear like scattered diamonds, the griot is telling a story. It's a tale about the trickster hyena and the clever rabbit, a story you've heard a dozen times. But tonight, he falters. He pauses, searching for a name. The name of the village the hyena was traveling to. A collective breath is held. For the griot to forget is a deeply unsettling thing, a crack in the foundation of the world. The silence stretches, and then, in a voice barely louder than a whisper, you say the name. You don't even know why you say it. The name just rises up from your memory, a smooth, polished stone. The griot's eyes, ancient and sharp, snap to yours. He doesn't smile. He doesn't scold you for interrupting. He just holds your gaze. For a long moment, in his eyes, you see a flicker of something, recognition, assessment, maybe even a hint of destiny. The story continues, but something has shifted in the air. The great, living library of your village has just noticed a new, empty shelf, and you have a terrifying, exhilarating feeling that he is considering you to fill it. The journey hasn't even begun, but the path is already clearing before you. That single, whispered name hangs in the cooling air. The griot, whose name you learn is Almani, finishes his story for the crowd, his voice as smooth and practiced as ever, but his eyes keep finding yours in the flickering firelight. There's a new weight to his gaze, an unnerving intensity that makes the skin on your arms prickle. The feeling of being watched doesn't end when the crowd disperses and you're huddled on your sleeping mat. It follows you into your dreams. A few days pass, days filled with a tense, humming silence. Your parents have noticed the change, too. They watch you with a new, worried curiosity. Then, the summons comes. Not a shout across the village, but a quiet word delivered by Seko, the apprentice, his face impassive. Almani wants to see you. Your heart hammers against your ribs like a trapped bird. This is it. You walk across the dusty compound, each step feeling both heavy and terrifyingly light. Almani's hut is larger than most, and the air inside is different. It smells of aged wood, of the beeswax he uses on his chorus strings, of dried herbs you can't name, and something else, the dry, papery scent of time itself. Instruments you've only ever seen from a distance now hang on the walls like sacred artifacts. There's the 21-stringed kora, its gourd body glowing in the dim light. There are various balafons, wooden xylophones that look like the skeletons of some musical beast, and long, slender drums. It feels less like a home and more like a shrine to sound and memory. Almani sits on a low stool, not looking at you, but polishing a wooden amulet. He lets the silence stretch, a deliberate tactic you will one day learn to use yourself. He is testing your nerve. You stand there, trying not to fidget, feeling your dusty feet sticking to the cool, packed earth floor. Finally, he speaks, his voice a low rumble. What is your mother's name? And her mother's name before her? And what is the name of your father's clan? He is not making small talk. This is the first and most important question. This is the test of blood. In your world, history is not a hobby. It is a profession, and it is a profession you are born into. Being a griot, a jelly, is overwhelmingly a hereditary role. You cannot simply decide to become one any more than you can decide to be born into the family of a king or a blacksmith. Your society is built on a caste system, and the Jelliu, the Griots, are a distinct caste. So you answer, reciting the names of your parents, your grandparents, the clan your family belongs to. You feel a knot of dread in your stomach. Your family are not Griots. You are farmers and herders. You have the wrong blood. He listens, his eyes closed, nodding slowly as if tasting the names on his tongue. He knows the names, of course. He knows everyone's lineage. This is not for his information, it's for yours. When you finish, he is silent for another long moment. Your mother's great-grandmother, he says, his eyes opening to pin you in place. Her sister married a man from the Kuiate line. Your breath catches. Everyone knows the Kuiate family. They are the Griots of Griots, the lineage that claims direct descent from Bala Fasik, the personal griot and advisor to the legendary Sanjata Keita, the founder of your entire empire. Bala Fasik was Sanjata's voice, his memory, his other half. To have even a drop of that blood, diluted over generations, is a powerful thing. It's like finding out you're distantly related to royalty, but in your world, it's a different kind of royalty, a royalty of the word. Almani explains that while the main branch of your family turned to the soil, a tiny seed of the Griot's gift has, apparently, lain dormant in your bloodline. It is a tenuous link, a footnote in the grand history he holds, but it is enough. You have passed the first test, but blood is not enough. Aptitude is everything. The real examination begins now. It's a strange and grueling interview. Almani speaks a sentence, a long, winding phrase full of complicated names and places, and you must repeat it back to him exactly. Not just the words, but the cadence, the rise and fall of his tone. He taps a complex rhythm on a gourd drum with his fingertips and motions for you to replicate it on your thighs. Your rhythm is clumsy at first. Then you close your eyes and let the pattern sink in, and your hands begin to move with a confidence that surprises you. He tells you a short, bizarre story about a monkey who traded his shadow for a piece of honeycomb. Then he asks you about your day, about the goats, a deliberate distraction. An hour later, as you're starting to relax, he snaps, "The monkey, tell me the story." You falter for a second, then the strange little tale comes spilling out. Word for word, he is testing the soil of your mind to see if it is fertile enough for the forest of knowledge he needs to plant there. Historians still argue whether a gifted child from a non-griot lineage could ever realistically be trained, or if the social structures made such a crossover completely impossible. Your own situation, with its thin but traceable link to a griot line, suggests a middle ground, that the rules were firm, but not entirely unbreakable if the talent was prodigious enough. Perhaps they believed the gift itself was proof of the blood, a dormant trait suddenly blooming. In fact, there's a quirky local belief that children born with their eyes wide open, who do not cry for the first few moments of life, are the ones who arrive already listening, already remembering a world before this one. You were one such child. Your mother has told you. At the time, she thought it was a strange omen. Now, it feels like a prophecy being fulfilled. This isn't like some pop quiz at school where you cram and forget. This is an assessment of your fundamental wiring. It's like he's running diagnostics on a computer no one has ever built before, checking your processing speed and your memory capacity. The pressure is immense. You feel like a clay pot being turned and inspected for the tiniest crack. Finally, he leans back and lets out a long, slow breath. The seed is there. he says, more to himself than to you. But the ground is hard. It will take much work to make it grow. That evening, he speaks with your father. You watch from a distance as the two men talk, their faces serious in the fading light. Your father's shoulders are slumped. Your mother stands in the doorway of your hut, her hands twisting in her apron. You can feel their pride, a shimmering heat that warms you from across the compound. But you can also feel their grief. To have a child chosen as a Griots apprentice is a tremendous honor. It elevates the status of your entire family. But it is also a kind of death. You will no longer be just their son. Your life is no longer your own, nor is it theirs. It belongs to the community, to the ancestors, to the history you will be tasked with preserving. You will be set apart, living under Almani's strict authority, your days and nights filled with a grueling training schedule that will leave no room for the childhood you were supposed to have. You are formally given to Almani. It is a solemn transaction. No money changes hands, only vows. Your parents vow not to interfere. Almani vows to train you, to feed you, to clothe you, and to turn you into a vessel of the past. He looks at you, his eyes seeming to pierce right through you. Everything you are, he says, his voice soft but unyielding, belongs to the word now. Your tongue, your ears, your mind. They are my tools. I will use them to build a library inside of you. It will be painful. You will want to quit. You will wish you had been born a simple farmer. But you will not quit. You nod, your throat too tight to speak. You walk from your family's hut to Almani's compound, leaving behind the only life you have ever known. The path is only 50 yards long, but it feels like 1,000 miles. You have passed the test. You have been chosen. And as you step into the shadows of Almani's world, you understand that the real test, the one that will last a lifetime, has just begun. Your new life begins before the sun is up. Almani rouses you in the pre-dawn chill, not with a gentle shake, but with a sharp command. There are no more lazy mornings or games with other children. Your first task is not to tend goats or fetch water, but to simply sit. You sit on a small stool at his feet while he performs his morning rituals, chanting names and histories you don't recognize, his voice a low, continuous murmur. He is priming his mind, warming up the engine of his memory. You are expected to sit, silent and still, and just absorb the sounds. But your real training, your first true step into the world of the griot, begins with the instrument he places in your lap. It is a kora. Up close, it's even more magical than you imagined. The body is a huge, perfectly round calabash gourd, cut in half and covered with a tight skin of treated cowhide, still bearing the faint patterns of the animal it came from. The neck is a long, smooth pole of dark rosewood, piercing through the gourd and emerging at the bottom. But it's the strings that mesmerize you. There are 21 of them, not in a single row like on some archer's harp, but in 2 parallel ranks, fanning out from the neck and anchored to the base with tight leather rings. In the old days, these strings were made from finely twisted strands of antelope gut, but Almanis are tough, wiry fishing line, a sign of the changing times. The instrument feels heavy, awkward, and alive in your lap. He shows you how to hold it, embracing the gourd, your hands gripping 2 vertical posts on either side of the strings. This is not a toy, Almani says, his voice devoid of warmth. It is not for making pretty sounds to please the village. Girls, it is your memory. It is your library. Each string is a shelf. Each melody is a book. You will learn to read not with your eyes, but with your fingers and your ears. This is the first great secret he reveals to you. The kora is not just an accompaniment to the story. It is a mnemonic device, a complex system for encoding and retrieving information. It's your external hard drive, your filing cabinet, and your search engine, all powered by sound. The very structure of it is a map. He explains how the 11 strings on the left are traditionally for the foundational, repeating bass lines and harmonies, the kumbengo. This is the rhythm of history, the steady heartbeat. The 10 strings on the right are for the flourishes, the solos, the virtuosic runs, the biramintingo, that represent individual deeds, moments of heroism, or flashes of insight. Your first lesson is agony. You don't get to play a tune. You don't even get to play a chord. Almani points to a single string on the left. Pluck it, he commands. You reach out, your thumb and forefinger fumbling, and produce a dull, thudding noise. Again. Thud. Again. Thud. He corrects the angle of your hand, the position of your thumb. He tells you the string must be plucked with intention, with a clean snap that produces a note both clear and resonant. For what feels like hours, you pluck that one string. The tip of your right index finger grows tender, then red, then raw. You whimper softly as a blister forms and then breaks, leaving a stinging, open sore. You expect him to let you stop. Instead, he simply says, "Good. Now the blood will help you remember the pain. The pain will help you remember the discipline. Pluck it again." You begin to understand that this isn't just cruelty, it's a forging process. Your soft, childish hands must be remade into the tools of a griot. A joke flashes through your mind about how your friends are probably complaining about getting a splinter while you're being forced to bleed for a single musical note. The thought is so absurd it's almost funny, but you stifle the urge to laugh. There is a deep belief tied to the kora, a quirky tidbit of lore Almani shares with you later. The spirit of the instrument, its nyama, will only respond to a player who has sacrificed for it. Your blood, your sweat, your calluses, they are offerings to the kora, proof that you are worthy of wielding its power. Some say the wood of the neck itself holds its own spirit, taken from the sacred kino tree, and it must be appeased before it will agree to speak its truths through the strings. Days turn into weeks of this torturous, repetitive practice. You learn to pluck each of the 21 strings, one by one, until the sound is perfect. Then you learn to play 2 at once, then 3. You are not learning songs, but patterns. Almani will assign you a simple piece of information, a list of the 7 villages that owe allegiance to your chief, for example, and then he will give you a simple 7-note pattern, a kumbengo. You must practice the pattern while reciting the list over and over again, until the music and the words fuse in your mind. The low, steady rhythm of the notes becomes a container for the names. The melody becomes a hook that pulls the list out of your memory. It's frustrating. Your fingers feel clumsy, your voice cracks, and your mind wanders. But Almani is relentless. One afternoon, he demonstrates the true power of the system. He begins to tell the story of a great warrior from 2 centuries past. First, he speaks the name of the warrior's clan. As he does, he plays a deep, powerful, 3-note bass line on the kora. "This is the song of his blood," Almani says. "Whenever you hear this, you know we are speaking of his people." Then he begins to recount the warrior's deeds. For his birth, a light, hopeful arpeggio. For his first great battle, a frantic, percussive flurry of notes played with both hands. For his marriage to a king's daughter, a graceful, lyrical melody. The story unfolds, and the music is not just in the background. It is the story, translated into another language. The kora provides the structure, the emotional texture, and the mnemonic triggers. It's a bit like a modern computer file, where the story is the data and the melody is the file name. To find the story, you just have to remember the tune, that it's a technology that feels both ancient and incredibly sophisticated. And yet, historians and ethnomusicologists still argue about the precise origins of the kora. While the epics themselves are ancient, stretching back to the 13th century, some evidence suggests the 21-string kora is a more recent innovation, perhaps evolving from simpler harps and lutes as late as the 18th century, during the boom of the Kabu Empire. Legends, of course, tell a different story, attributing its creation to a great jinn who was captured by a human hero. The idea that this perfect instrument of memory might be younger than the stories it tells is a strange and fascinating puzzle. Your breakthrough comes one sweltering afternoon. You've been struggling for a week with a particularly tricky passage, a syncopated rhythm meant to accompany the lineage of a minor but important family. Your fingers keep tripping over each other, and your recitation of the names is hesitant. You feel the familiar sting of tears welling up in your eyes from sheer frustration. Almani watches you, his expression unreadable. "Stop thinking with your head," he says, his voice quiet but sharp. "Your head is stupid and slow. Let your fingers remember." You close your eyes, take a deep breath that smells of dust and dry grass, and you let go. You stop trying to force it. You just play, and suddenly it flows. The rhythm comes out perfectly, your fingers dancing on the strings. And as they dance, the names come unbidden to your lips, perfectly in time. With the music, the notes are not just accompanying the names, they are carrying them. You feel a profound click, a connection between your hands, your voice, and your mind that wasn't there before. The secret language is no longer foreign. For the first time, you have not just repeated it, you have spoken it. You finish the passage and look up, heart pounding. Almani simply nods, a gesture so small it's almost invisible. But for you, it feels like the sun has just burst through the clouds. That small, crucial victory with the kora does not earn you a day off. There is no praise, no celebration. In Almani's world, progress is not a cause for rest, but a signal that you are ready for more hardship. Your breakthrough was merely the opening of a gate, and now you will be pushed through it into the vast, unforgiving territory of pure memory. Your childhood, whatever scraps of it were left, ends now. It does not vanish in a single dramatic moment, but erodes day by day, like a riverbank in the rainy season. While the other village children chase each other in clouds of red dust, there, laughter echoing in the hot afternoon air, you are in your new classroom, the patch of packed earth under the shade of a colossal baobab tree. There is no desk, no slate, no paper. There is only you, Almani, and the endless, shimmering air waiting to be filled with words. Your formal training in memorization begins, and it is brutal in its simplicity. It is built on the bedrock of rote repetition, a technique as old as humanity itself. Almani is not yet interested in your understanding. Understanding is a luxury you have not yet earned. He is interested in capacity. He needs to stretch the vessel of your mind before he can fill it with anything precious. So you begin with lists. Endless, soul-crushingly tedious lists. You memorize the names of the chiefs of all the surrounding villages. You memorize the lineage of Almani's own family, back 12 generations. You memorize the names of every useful plant in the savanna, from the tough grass used for thatching roofs to the bitter leaf that suits a fever. Each list is a string of sounds, a chant you must repeat until it becomes part of your breathing. The method is relentless call and response. Almani will speak a line, his voice clear and steady. Hamadi, son of Farron. And you must immediately echo it back. Hamadi, son of Farron. Kumba, daughter of Sada. Kumba, daughter of Sada. There can be no hesitation. The echo must be perfect. Any mistake in pronunciation, any fumbled syllable, is met with a sharp look or a tap from his staff. It feels less like learning and more like being programmed. The information isn't passing through your conscious mind for analysis. It's being hammered directly into your deeper memory, the same way a blacksmith hammers a pattern into hot iron. He makes you chant these lists for hours, your voice growing hoarse, the sun moving slowly across the sky, marking the time you are no longer allowed to waste. The rhythm is everything. It makes the words stick. You feel the lists pulsing in your head even when you try to sleep, an endless earworm of names and places. This discipline is as much physical as it is mental. Almani forces you to maintain a specific posture, sitting bolt upright on a small wooden stool, your back straight, your hands resting on your knees. A lazy body makes a lazy mind, he drills into you. The history of kings is not to be learned while slouching. You learn to control your breath, to inhale deeply and exhale slowly as you chant, allowing you to recite long passages without interruption. Even your diet is now part of the training. You eat simple, nourishing food, millet porridge, steamed vegetables, a little fish from the river, but nothing heavy that could dull your senses or make you sleepy. Sleep itself becomes a tool. Almani often wakes you in the dead of night, in that disorienting moment between dreams and reality, and demands a recitation. The tributaries of the great river from east to west. Now, groggy and confused, you have to summon the list from the depths of your mind. It's a cruel, but effective test. If you can recall it then, you truly own it. He has you memorize the towns along the great bend of the Niger River, the lifeblood of the empire. This list feels different. It has weight. You chant the names, Gao, Timbuktu, Jin, and Almani points in their direction, making you understand that this is not just a string of sounds, but a real map of your world. The river is the empire's main artery, a highway for the armies of the Munsa, and for the merchants with their pirogues piled high with salt, gold, kola nuts, and enslaved people. Knowing this path is fundamental to understanding the scope and power of your people. It makes the abstract task of memorization feel grounded, important. Still, the process is grueling. A modern student cramming for finals has no idea what real mental pressure is. You're not trying to pass a test. You're trying to become the test, to become the textbook. Almani supplements your training with folk science, little rituals, and beliefs designed to sharpen the mind. Before a particularly long session, he makes you chew on a piece of bitter kola nut. It's sharp, astringent taste meant to wake up the tongue and clear the fog from the memory. There's a quirky and frankly disgusting tidbit he shares about a legendary griot from the past who was said to have eaten the roasted heart of a lion, believing he would absorb the animal's courage and fierce spirit, qualities needed to speak truth to powerful kings. While you're thankfully not served any lion hearts, you do get a strange, bitter tea every morning, a concoction of herbs Almani says will strengthen the niyama, the essential life force that fuels memory. You're not sure if it works, or if the sheer awfulness of the taste just shocks you into paying better attention. It's easy to see this kind of education as primitive, even harmful. Modern educators and psychologists still argue whether this kind of intense, repetitive rote learning stifles creativity or if, in an oral context, it is the essential and only way to build the foundational mental capacity required for higher order synthesis and improvisation later on. For Almani, there is no debate. You cannot build a house without first laying a deep and solid foundation. Right now, you are digging that foundation, hauling the stones, and mixing the mortar. The beautiful architecture of the epics will come later. Right now is the time for sweat and calluses, both on your fingers and on your mind. You sometimes marvel at the sheer gulf between your world and the one you imagine others live in. Your mind is being forged into a weapon, a tool capable of storing centuries. Meanwhile, you suspect a modern person's mind struggles to remember a phone number without saving it to a device. The contrast is dizzying. For weeks, this is your entire existence. Sit, breathe, chant, repeat. The names, places, and lists are just sounds, devoid of meaning. They are data points without a story. You feel less like a student and more like a vessel being slowly filled with dry sand. But then, one evening, a subtle shift occurs. You are chanting a long, monotonous genealogy of a minor ruling family from a century ago. And his son was Ngolo, and his son was Da. You've recited this list dozens of times. But tonight, Almani stops you. Da, he says, looking at the horizon. He was called Da the Sparrow. They say he was a small man, but he once shamed a giant from the south in an argument over a single cow, using only his wits. He spoke for 3 days without sleep, and the giant finally gave up and walked home in disgrace. And just like that, a light flickers on in the dusty library of your mind. The name Da is no longer just a sound you are forced to repeat. It has a story. It has a personality. It is attached to a small, clever man who you can almost picture in your mind's eye. It's a tiny detail, an almost offhand comment from your master, but it's a revelation. You look down the long list of names you have already memorized, and for the first time, you wonder about them. Who were they? What did they do? You realize with a jolt that you haven't been memorizing lists. You've been memorizing the table of contents. The foundation has been laid. Now, you have just been given the first hint of the incredible stories that will one day be built upon it. The story of Da the Sparrow has changed something fundamental in you. A name is no longer just a sound, it's a seed. Almani sees the shift in your eyes. He knows that the foundation of raw data, pounded into your mind through weeks of relentless chanting, is finally solid enough to build upon. It's time to move beyond rote recitation and learn the secret to true mastery. It's time to learn how to build a library. Your mind is not a sack to be filled with jumbled pebbles, he tells you one morning, his voice low and serious. A sack can rip, pebbles can spill. Your mind must become a village. Every house must be known to you. Every path must be clear. You must be able to walk from the blacksmith's forge to the weaver's loom in the dark and never stumble. He is introducing you to the art of architecture for the mind, a system for organizing the vast quantities of information you are expected to hold. He would not call it a memory palace, the term used by the ancient Greeks and Romans who discovered A remarkably similar technique worlds away. But the principle is identical, a stunning example of how different cultures, faced with the need to manage massive amounts of data without writing, arrived at the same profound solution. This is the Griots' most powerful tool, the loom upon which the entire tapestry of history is woven. Your training begins not with a new list, but with a simple command. Close your eyes. Walk into your mother's house. Tell me what you see. You obey. Instantly, you are standing in the familiar, comforting space of your family's hut. You can see the 3 large stones that form the central hearth, still smudged with soot. You can smell the lingering scent of the groundnut stew your mother cooked last night. You see the woven sleeping mat where you used to lie, the smooth, worn grinding stone in the corner, the single wooden peg where your father hangs his farming cloak. Almani's voice guides you. This hut is now a house of memory. Each thing in it will hold a piece of knowledge for you. The doorway, the hearth, the grinding stone, the sleeping mat, the wooden peg. These are your shelves. He instructs you to take the genealogy you learned, the one that ended with the sparrow, and place its members inside the hut. The process feels strange, like a waking dream. The founder of the line, a great chief, place him at the doorway, Almani instructs. Make him large, so large he has to duck to enter. See the sunlight on his shoulders. You picture it, a giant of a man, blocking the entrance. His son, the one who was a warrior, put him by the hearth. See him sharpening a spear, the sparks from the stone flying into the fire. You craft the image in your mind. It's vivid, alive. And to the sparrow, where does a sparrow belong? You think for a moment. On the grinding stone, you whisper. Small and chirping. Almani nods. Yes, see him there, hopping about, pecking at stray grains of millet. Make the image absurd. Make it move. A boring image is a forgotten image. You continue through the list, placing each ancestor in a specific spot, a locus, within your mental hut, creating a bizarre, memorable, animated diorama. This is the key. You are translating abstract data, names on a list, into vivid, multisensory images and placing them in a familiar spatial environment. To recall the list, you no longer need to dredge it up from a formless sea of chanted sounds. Instead, you simply walk through your mental hut. You open the door, and there is the founder. You glance at the fire, and there is his warrior's son. You look to the corner, and there is the sparrow, chattering away on the grinding stone. The sequence is no longer a sequence, it's a journey. It's like upgrading from a simple text file to an interactive, 3D animated film inside your own head. Once you have mastered the hut, Almani tells you to expand. One family line is not a history, he says. Your village is not one hut. He instructs you to use the entire village of your childhood as your mental landscape. Your own hut holds one lineage. Your neighbor's hut will hold another. The chief's central compound, with its larger buildings and open spaces, will be where you store the laws of the kingdom and the history of its political alliances. The bustling, chaotic marketplace becomes the repository for famous trade deals. The price of salt in a certain year, the stories of foreign merchants. The path that winds down to the river, with its familiar twists and turns, its distinctive trees and rocks, that will become the great highway where you will eventually place the verses of the epic of Sanjata, the foundational story of your people. Your mind is becoming a map, a world, a simulation. To make the memories even stronger, Almani adds another layer, sensory association. This is a quirky, practical magic that anchors the images even more firmly in your mind. When you are placing the history of a family known for their skill as blacksmiths into a mental hut, he hands you a piece of cool, smooth iron to hold. The tactile sensation becomes linked to the memory when he has you build a mental structure. For the history of the salt trade, he makes you place a single, coarse grain of salt on your tongue. The sharp, mineral taste becomes the key that unlocks that entire wing of your library. You are not just seeing your memories, you are feeling them, tasting them, smelling them. The experience is intoxicating and deeply strange. Cognitive scientists and historians still argue whether these mnemonic images were experienced as simple, consciously constructed tools, or if, with years of practice, they became a kind of hallucinated reality, allowing the griot to literally walk through their histories as if they were truly there. From what you're experiencing, the latter feels closer to the truth. The line between imagination and perception begins to blur. The people on your lists are no longer just names. They are your mental neighbors. You know where they live. One evening, Almani tests you. Recite the line of the Komabus, he commands, naming the family you stored in your mental version of your neighbor's hut. You close your eyes. You don't search for a chant. Instead, you mentally stand in the village compound, turn, and walk to the familiar hut next to your own. You push aside the leather flap over the door and step inside. You see the images you stored there: the woman by the loom, the hunter oiling his bow, the child playing with clay figures. You simply describe what you see, walking from one station to the next. The names and deeds flow out of you, not as a memorized list, but as a guided tour. It's effortless, fluid, and perfectly accurate. You open your eyes, your heart pounding with the thrill of this newfound power. You have the key. This is how one mind can hold a library. But as you look at Almani, you see not praise, but a familiar, stern gravity in his eyes. You have built a good village, he says, his voice a low warning. It is strong, but a village can have liars in it. A path can be washed away. If you place a man in the wrong house, or teach a path to the wrong landmark, you do not just make a mistake. You corrupt the past. You tell a lie that can become the truth for generations. The responsibility of what you're doing settles on you with a new and crushing weight. The system that gives you this incredible power is also exquisitely fragile. You are not just an architect. You are the guardian, and the integrity of the entire world you are building rests on your shoulders alone. The architect of a village must know his craft, but the true test is when he is commissioned to build the king's palace. Almani's warning about the fragility of your mental village hangs in your mind, a constant, low-level hum of anxiety. You have the technique, the blueprint for how to build a library in your head. Now, you will be given the most important and heaviest books to place on its shelves. Your first great test, the trial that will determine if you are truly capable of this life, is to master the genealogies. In your world, a family tree is not a quaint hobby for a quiet afternoon. It is the central pillar of reality. It is constitutional law, a land deed, a social security number, and a sacred text all rolled into one. A person's name is meaningless without the long chain of names behind them. The right to rule, to own land, to hold a certain status is derived directly from that chain. An error in recitation isn't a simple mistake. It's a political earthquake that could delegitimize a chief, start a feud, or even plunge a region into war. Your task is monumental. Almani instructs you to commit to memory the entire lineage of the Keda clan, the family of the Munsas, the emperors of Mali. This is the trunk of the great tree from which all other noble branches grow. This is not a task that can be contained in a single mental hut. This requires an entire district in the ever-expanding village of your mind. You spend days just planning the construction. Following Almani's guidance, you choose a vast and familiar mental space. The long, winding path from your own village to the next market town, a journey you've walked dozens of times. You know every twist, every giant termite mound, every strangely shaped tree along its length. This path will be your new timeline. At the very start, by the great baobab tree whose roots spill over the earth like sleeping pythons, you place your anchor image for the founder himself, Sanjata Keita, the Lion King. You don't just picture him. Following Almani's method, you build a living, breathing scene. You see Sanjata, not as a king on a throne, but as the legends describe him, a man who was once unable to walk, now pulling himself upright with a giant iron rod, the wood of a baobab splintering in his other hand. The image is one of immense struggle and world-breaking power. He is the gateway to this entire district of your mind. From him, the main path of your memory journey will follow the direct line of succession. Each subsequent Munsa is placed at the next major landmark. The second Munsa, his son, you place at the rocky outcropping a mile down the path. You picture him seated there, consulting with his advisors. The third Munsa is at the bend where the path dips down to the small creek. The real challenge, the thing that makes this so mind-breakingly complex, is the branching paths. A Munsa doesn't just have one heir. He may have multiple wives, dozens of children, brothers with their own ambitions. For each of these, you must build a smaller side path that branches off from your main route. The heir continues down the main road, but his 6 brothers each get their own little dirt track leading off to a mental hut that will contain their own descendants. The sheer 3-dimensional complexity is staggering. It's like trying to build a spiderweb out of smoke. Your head throbs with the effort. You feel a literal, physical weight, the weight of 1,000 names pressing down on you. One of the most important branches belongs to Mansa Musa, the famously wealthy emperor whose pilgrimage to Mecca in the 14th century literally put Mali onto the maps of European cartographers. They drew him in their atlases sitting on a throne, holding a massive orb of pure gold. Placing him correctly is critical. His branch of the family tree isn't just a side path, it's a major highway lined with monuments, representing his incredible wealth and international significance. You spend a week just building his section of the memory palace, ensuring the connections to his father and his son are unbreakable. You get lost. Many times, you take a mental walk down the path, and you make a wrong turn at the creek, following the side path of a lesser son instead of the main line of emperors. You accidentally merge 2 lineages, creating a monstrous hybrid of history that never existed. Each time you fail, Almani knows. He tests you daily. Who was the 3rd son of Mansa Wali? He will snap, and you will have to mentally sprint down the path, find Wali, and check the side paths. If you hesitate, if you get it wrong, the correction is swift and severe. You have led the village into a swamp, he'll say, his voice thick with disappointment. Tear it down. Build it again. The mental effort of destroying and reconstructing these intricate structures is exhausting. You fall onto your sleeping mat at night with a headache that feels like your skull is cracking, your dreams a chaotic jumble of twisting paths and shouting names that manage the complexity. You learn specific mnemonic tricks for genealogy. You adopt a system of hand gestures, a quirky but effective technique where each finger on your left hand represents a generation, and the 3 joints on each finger represent the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd sons of that generation. You can literally hold a portion of the family tree in your hand, touching a specific joint to anchor yourself as you recite. You also learn to link names to clan totems. For instance, if a Keda man marries a woman from the Trore clan, whose totem is the lion, all of her children in your memory palace will be pictured holding a lion's tail or wearing a lion's tooth. These tags, these little bits of metadata, help you keep the sprawling web from collapsing into chaos. It's like playing a game of Thrones with 1,000 warring houses, except you're not allowed to check the wiki. You have to be the wiki. Through this intense process, you begin to understand that these genealogies are not always a perfect scientific record. Historians and anthropologists still debate the nature of these official genealogies, questioning whether they represent a literal, biological record or a form of structural amnesia, where inconvenient branches of a family tree, usurpers, weaklings, or the children of disfavored wives, were deliberately pruned from the official history to reinforce the current ruler's legitimacy. Almani hints at this, pointing out a suspicious gap here, a convenient adoption there. History is a garden, he says cryptically. Sometimes it must be weeded to remain beautiful. The implication is terrifying. You are not just a recorder. You are a gatekeeper of what is remembered and what is forgotten after 2 months of this grueling work. The day of your test arrives. Almani doesn't just quiz you himself. He takes you before the village chief and his council of elders. They are assembled in the main meeting hut, their faces stern and impassive. You feel a familiar terror, but this time it's different. It's sharpened by the presence of real political power. A visitor from a neighboring village is there, and he poses the test question, a complex query designed to probe the deepest branches of your knowledge. Our chief's great-grandmother was a Keda, he says. We claim kinship with the line of Mansa Wali. Tell us how this branch connects to the main tree. You close your eyes. The smoky hut disappears. You are standing at the start of your memory path, before the mighty image of Sanjata. With a steady mental pace, you walk the timeline, past the 2nd Mansa, the 3rd. You arrive at the landmark. For Mansa Wali, you see the main path continue forward, but you turn and follow the clearly marked side path you built for his 2nd son. You follow that path for 3 generations, to a smaller hut where you stored the image of a daughter who married a chief from the visitor's village. You see all the details you placed there. You open your eyes, and in a clear, steady voice, you trace the connection, name by name, generation by generation. You don't recite a list. You tell a story of a journey through your own mind. When you finish, there is a long silence. The chief and the elders look at Almani and nod slowly. The visitor smiles. You have done it. You have navigated the labyrinth and returned with the truth. You have proven you can carry the weight of your people's past, and in their faces, you see your future. You will be the man who knows, the living anchor in a world of shifting sands. Having proven you can bear the weight of the names, the skeleton of your people's past, Almani deems you ready for the next stage. It is time to give that skeleton flesh, blood, and a voice. It is time to learn the story that gives all the names their meaning, the narrative that holds your entire world together. You are going to learn the epic of Sanjata. This is not just another story. It is the story. It is your people's Iliad and Odyssey combined, a sweeping tale of prophecy, magic, betrayal, exile, and triumphant destiny. It is the national epic of the Mande peoples, the cornerstone of your repertoire, and the living soul of the Mali Empire. Mastering it is not just an academic exercise, it is a sacred act. To know the epic is to know why your world is the way it is, why certain clans are rivals, why others are allies, why the Kedas have the right to rule, and why a Griot's word carries so much power. The process of learning it is unlike anything you have done before. You do not start at once upon a time and proceed linearly to the end. The epic is too vast, too complex for that. It's more like a universe than a book, and you must learn its constellations one by one. Almani begins to teach it to you in thematic chunks, in modules that you will one day learn to weave together in performance. For 1 week, you focus solely on the prophecies surrounding Sanjata's birth, learning the tales of the 2 hunters who brought his mother, Sagalin, the buffalo woman, to the king of the Mande. You memorize the praise songs dedicated to Sagalin, a woman considered ugly and misshapen, but possessing immense spiritual power, or Nyama. The following week, you might leap forward decades in the narrative to learn the catalog of kings and allied warriors who joined Sanjata in his fight for the throne. Suddenly, the abstract genealogies you spent months mastering snap into focus. Those names you stored in the various huts of your mental village are not just names anymore. They are characters, heroes with specific deeds and personalities, and you now learn their stories and place them within the grander narrative. Your memory palace becomes a multi-layered system. The genealogical district you built is the character roster. The path to the river, which you had previously designated for the epic, now becomes the stage where these characters will act. All your training begins to synthesize. As you learn the story of Sanjata's painful childhood exile, you mentally walk along a barren, dusty stretch of your memory path, placing scenes of his wanderings at each landmark. And you are not just reciting words, you are playing the kora. You learn the specific, heroic melody that is Sanjata's personal theme, a driving, powerful tune that will announce his presence in the story. You learn the sorrowful, lyrical piece that represents the pain of his exile. The music becomes the emotional soundtrack, guiding both your memory and the audience's heart. The chorus string that you once bled over is no longer just a note. It's a piece of a hero's soul. The epic builds towards its explosive climax, the historical Battle of Karina, which took place around 1235. This is the ultimate confrontation, the event that created the Mali Empire. Here, Sanjata and his allies finally faced the great villain of the epic, the sorcerer king Samaro Kante of the Saso people. Samaro is a figure of immense terror and power. Almani spends weeks teaching you about him. You learn the songs that describe his horrifying castle, where he has a throne made of human skulls and consults with evil spirits. You learn about his instruments of power, especially his sacred balafon, a magical xylophone that produces music no ordinary mortal can replicate. Samaro is presented as nearly invincible, a master of dark magic. The quirky, almost absurd detail you must memorize is his single, secret weakness, the Tana, or taboo, that can unravel his power. His only vulnerability is the touch of a spur from a white rooster. This small, seemingly random fact becomes a crucial plot point, the key to the hero's victory. The story of how Sanjata's sister discovers this secret and how his generals fashion a special arrow tipped with a rooster's spur is a vital chapter. It's a bit like learning about a terrifying supervillain's secret kryptonite, it seems. Almost comically specific, but in the logic of the epic, it's a detail of world-changing importance as you absorb these fantastical elements. You can't help but wonder how much is true. Historians and folklorists constantly debate how much of the Epic of Sanjata is a literal account of 13th century events versus how much is mythological accretion, with magical elements and folk motifs layered onto a historical core over centuries of oral transmission. Was Samaro a real king? Almost certainly. Did he have a throne of skulls and a weakness to poultry? Probably not. But for the Griot, the question of literal, factual truth is secondary. The epic's purpose is to convey a deeper truth about the nature of power, destiny, and the spiritual forces that shape the world. Your job is not to be a modern historian, fact-checking every detail. Your job is to tell the story in its full, awesome, and magical power that it feels like you are downloading the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe into your brain, one character arc at a time. The genealogies are your cast list, and the epic is the multi-phase saga, full of heroes, villains, epic battles, and deep-cut lore. The sheer volume of narrative, poetry, songs, and praise names is overwhelming. But now, with your memory palace fully functional and your kora skills ingrained, the information has a place to go. It slots neatly into the structures you so painfully built. After months of this modular learning, Almani decides you are ready for a different kind of test. Not for the elders, who test for accuracy, but for the village children, who test for magic. One evening, under the stars, he gathers the young ones and tells you to perform a single chapter, the story of Sanjata's childhood. You tell the tale of the boy who was prophesied to be a great king, but who was born unable to walk, a cripple who crawled on the floor, mocked by his mother's rivals. You play the sad, frustrated music on your kora. Then you reach the turning point, where his mother, shamed one last time, demands that he walk, and the boy, filled with the fire of his destiny, forces himself to his feet, using a giant iron bar for support, an act so powerful it is said he lifted a whole baobab tree with him. As you reach this climax, you switch to Sanjata's heroic theme on the kora, your voice soaring with the triumph of the moment. You look at the children. Their eyes are wide, their mouths agape. They are not listening to a history lesson. They are witnessing a miracle. In that moment, you feel the true purpose of your art. It's not just about storage and retrieval, like some fleshy computer. It is about transmission. It's about taking the raw data of the past and breathing it into life, making it walk and talk and sing and fight. You are not just a librarian. You are a sorcerer. You can conjure the ghosts of kings and make them live again in the minds of your audience. The story has come alive through you, and for the first time, you feel the intoxicating power of the performer, the intoxicating thrill of performance, of holding the village children wrapped with the magic of Sanjata's rise, leaves you feeling 10 feet tall. You have tasted the power of the epic, the grand, sweeping narrative of kings and battles. In your youthful pride, you begin to think this is the entirety of your calling. Almani, with his uncanny ability to read your thoughts, quickly disabuses you of this notion. A baobab tree is not only its high branches that touch the sun, he says to you one morning, his voice cutting through your self-satisfaction. It is the trunk that holds it up, the bark that protects it, and the deep roots that drink from the earth. A griot who knows only of kings is a griot with his head in the clouds and no feet on the ground. He is useless. With that, your training pivots. You are drawn away from the glamorous avenues of your mental city, away from the district of the Munsas and the great stage of the epic, and into the quiet, cluttered side streets and humble courtyards. It is time for you to learn the histories of the humble, the wisdom of the common people. This knowledge lacks the thunder of the epic, but it is the mortar that holds the bricks of your community together. This is what will make you not just a historian of the nation, but the memory of your own village. You begin to understand that the epic is for the festival. These smaller histories are for living, day by day. You start by expanding your genealogical knowledge downwards and sideways. It's not enough to know the lineage of the Catus. You must now learn the family trees of the Nyamakula, the artisan castes who form the backbone of Mande society. This is a complex social structure you must internalize. You learn the histories of the Numu, the blacksmiths, a caste viewed with both respect and fear, for they command the transformative power of fire and earth to create tools and weapons. You build a new section of your memory village for them, perhaps near a mental image of a roaring forge, the air filled with the clang of hammers and the scent of hot metal. You also learn the histories of the Garank, the leatherworkers, and the Horon, the freeborn farmers who make up the majority of the population. Each has their own stories, their own proud lineage, and their own place in the intricate social web. Beyond names, you must master the wisdom of the people, which is most often packaged in proverbs and folk tales. You learn hundreds of them, each a compressed nugget of ethical or practical advice. But you can't just learn the proverb. You must learn the story that gives it life. Almani tells you a quirky little tale to explain the proverb. A single bracelet does not jingle. The story is about a proud, wealthy woman who refused to wear the multiple, chattering bracelets favored by the other village women, opting for a single, elegant, and silent gold band. One day, she wandered too far from the path while gathering berries. When she didn't return, no one could find her. She was lost to the bush because she moved in silence. The other women, with their jingling, clanking bracelets, could always be heard, always be located by their sisters. The proverb becomes a lesson in community, a reminder that being heard and being part of the group is a form of safety. The sheer practicality of the knowledge you must now absorb is staggering. You become a living almanac. You memorize the agricultural cycles passed down for generations, not just when to plant the millet, but how to read the subtle shifts in the wind and the behavior of insects to predict the first rains. You learn the basics of animal husbandry. You also become the village pharmacy. Almani walks you through the bush, pointing out plants. This root, boiled, eases the cough. This leaf, crushed into a paste, draws the poison from a scorpion's sting. This bark, chewed, settles a restless stomach. You must store this pharmacopoeia in your mind, creating a new memory walk, this time through the wilderness, placing each cure on its corresponding plant. It's like being the town's doctor, veterinarian, lawyer, and gossip columnist all rolled into one. You are the human search engine for your entire community. This encyclopedic knowledge of local affairs, of course, comes with a certain power and a heavy responsibility. Sociologists and historians still debate whether the Griots' intimate knowledge of local histories and personal secrets primarily served as a benevolent community resource, or if it also functioned as a powerful tool for social control, allowing the Griot to subtly enforce conformity through the threat of public praise, or, more terrifyingly, public shame. If you know the story of every family's proudest moment and its most embarrassing secret, your words carry an immense weight. You learn that a well-timed proverb can defuse a tense argument, but a carelessly shared story could reignite a feud that has been dormant for 50 years. Knowing everyone's history is like having access to every season of a reality TV show that's been running for 4 centuries, and you're the only one who remembers all the plot twists point one afternoon. This new knowledge is put to the test. A heated argument erupts between 2 families over a small, dusty patch of land at the edge of the village. One family claims it has always been theirs. The other claims their grandfather was the first to clear it. Tempers flare, and voices are raised. The village chief, a wise but weary man, cannot recall the truth of the matter. He calls for Almani, who, to your terror, turns and looks at you. You have the knowledge, he says simply. Speak. A hush falls. The 2 angry patriarchs turn to stare at you. You close your eyes, shutting out their expectant faces. You don't journey to the grand avenues of the Kedah district. Instead, you navigate to the smaller, more familiar compound in your mind where you stored the histories of these specific families. You walk through their mental huts, examining the scenes you placed there, and you find it. Stored in the memory locus of a grandmother weaving a burial shroud, you find the story. You open your eyes. The land belongs to the family of Musa. You state, your voice shaking only slightly, but it was given to them by the family of Ibrahim. It was a bride price gift when Fanta, daughter of Ibrahim, married the second son of Mouse's grandfather 67 years ago. The gift was to honor the bride, whose family had cleared the land but moved their own fields further south. You have recited a piece of history that everyone else has forgotten. It is not a story of kings or magic. It is a story about a wedding gift, a small, human detail. The two family heads stare at each other, the anger draining from their faces, replaced by a grudging understanding. The dispute is resolved. You have not performed. You have functioned. You have served. Almani gives you that same, barely perceptible nod. The cheering of the children was intoxicating, but this quiet, grudging respect from the elders feels different. It feels solid. You have shown that your knowledge is not just for entertainment. It is useful. You are not just the keeper of the epic songs. You are the keeper of the peace. You are becoming essential. The quiet satisfaction you earned by resolving the land dispute is a new and potent feeling. It's the feeling of being useful. Almani allows you to savor it for a day before he introduces the next, far more dangerous layer of your education. A library that only speaks when it is asked a question is a dead place, he says, watching you practice a kora melody. It is a tomb for facts. A griot's knowledge must act in the world. It must build up and, when necessary, it must tear down. You have learned the words. Now you must learn their power. You must learn the art of the praise singer. You naively assume this means you will learn to flatter powerful people. You could not be more wrong. Praise singing, or fasa, is one of the most complex and essential functions of a griot. It is a social force, a political tool, and a weapon all in one. Almani begins to drill you in its techniques. He teaches you to take the dry genealogies you have memorized and spin them into gold. When the chief enters the village square, you are taught to stand and declaim, your voice ringing out. Here comes the son of the lion, grandson of the storm cloud, great-grandson of the man who carved a canoe from a single mango tree. The blood of the Kedas flows in his veins. This is not mere flattery. It is a public reminder, a form of social contract. By praising the chief for the deeds of his ancestors, you are holding him accountable to their legacy. You are telling both him and the entire village, this is the standard you must meet. Do not dishonor these great names. It is encouragement and warning woven together, but the real power, the sharpest edge of the griot's arsenal, lies on the other side of the coin, the power to criticize. This is never done directly. To stand up and call a chief a fool would be your last act on this earth. Instead, you learn the subtle, devastating art of satire and the left-handed praise. It's the ultimate form of passive-aggressive commentary, honed over centuries into a tool of surgical precision. Almani presents you with a scenario. The chief has become greedy, hoarding grain while others have little. How do you address it? You don't accuse him. Instead, during a public gathering, you might compose a praise song for him, lauding his incredible foresight, his unmatched love for his stores of grain, which he protects with the fierce jealousy of a mother lion guarding her cubs. The surface text is praise, but everyone, including the chief, hears the subtext. You are a greedy hoarder. You give him a chance to correct his behavior while avoiding a direct, honor-staining confrontation. It's like a modern celebrity roast, combined with a scathing political cartoon, performed live and with immediate consequences. This dual role of advisor and critic is why the griot holds such a unique and protected position. Historically, a griot was often the only person in the entire Mali Empire who could speak a hard truth to the Munsa. Generals and family members could be executed for delivering bad news, but a griot, protected by ancient tradition, could voice dissent. They were the unofficial opposition party, the free press, and the royal conscience, all embodied in one person. The great Balafasic, Sanjata's own griot, was not just his praise singer but his chief advisor and diplomat. Kings sent griots as ambassadors because they knew the message would be delivered with perfect accuracy and persuasive skill. You get to witness this firsthand. A dispute over grazing rights flares up with a neighboring village, and the situation is growing tense. The chief decides to send Almani to mediate. You go with him, not as a participant, but as an observer, a silent apprentice. Almani carries his jelly filly, a ceremonial staff made of a special dark wood and adorned with a horsehair whisk. This staff is not a weapon. It is a symbol of his office, a quirky but potent piece of material culture that functions like a diplomat's passport. To harm a griot carrying his staff is a sacrilege. As you enter the neighboring village, you see the tension in the air. But Almani doesn't begin by addressing the conflict. Instead, he begins a praise song for the rival chief, weaving his lineage with that of your own chief, reminding them both of a time 3 generations ago when their grandfathers fought side by side. In a border skirmish, he evokes their shared history, their ancient alliances. He builds a bridge of commonality before he even lets them speak of their division. He uses history as a tool of peace. Watching Almani operate, you realize the precariousness of his existence. He is respected, even feared, but his livelihood depends on the goodwill of the powerful. This leads to a constant balancing act. Historians and economists still debate the economic life of a griot. Were they independently wealthy patrons of the arts, or were they more like dependent clients, reliant on the constant generosity, the gifts of cloth, food, or money known as jelly dege, from the noble families they served? This reliance could force a griot to walk a constant tightrope between speaking truth and ensuring they could feed their own family. Praise too little, and the gifts dry up. Praise too much, and you lose your credibility and your true power. Your first test of this delicate art is terrifying. The chief's eldest son, a young man puffed up with arrogance, has been treating the elders with disrespect. The chief is displeased but cannot be seen to discipline his own heir too harshly. He asks Almani to have a word with the boy. The next day, Almani turns to you. "You will do it," he says. The boy needs to be reminded of his roots, but his pride must not be broken. He must be straightened, not shattered. Your heart feels like it's trying to beat its way out of your chest. You are being asked to publicly critique the second most powerful person in the village. That evening, during the communal meal, you take a deep breath, pick up your student kora, and step forward. You begin by playing the praise melody for the chief's clan. Then you begin to sing, your voice clearer than you expected it to be. You praise the boy's strength, comparing it to his famous warrior great-uncle. You praise his sharp eyes, comparing them to his grandfather, who was a renowned hunter. Then comes the turn. You praise his lofty spirit, which flies so high. It sometimes cannot see the ancient baobab roots from which it grew. You sing of how even the mightiest eagle must honor the mountain it nests on. You finish by praising the glorious future that awaits him, a future built upon the wisdom of the elders he is so fortunate to have guiding him. You never once mention his arrogance. You never accuse him of anything. You only praise, and praise, but the praise is a cage, gently guiding him back to his proper role. You finish, your hands trembling. The silence is deafening. The chief's son is staring at his feet, his face flushed a deep red. It is the color of shame, but also of pride. He has been corrected, but he has also been reminded of his greatness. He understands perfectly. Later that night, the boy seeks you out and quietly gives you a small, carved wooden bird, a token of respect. You have done it. You have wielded the word not as a hammer, but as a sculptor's chisel. You have shaped behavior without breaking honor. You have stepped into the most powerful and dangerous role of the griot, the social engineer. The delicate act of shaping the chief's son's behavior with a well-aimed praise song teaches you a profound lesson. The truth is only as powerful as its delivery. A perfectly memorized genealogy, recited in a dull monotone, is just noise. An epic tale, told without passion, is a sleeping pill. Having spent years building the library in your mind, Almani now declares it is time to master the art of librarianship. You must become a master showman. You must learn the art of the telling, the alchemy that transforms stored information into a living, breathing experience. The kora provides the path. The words provide the traveler. Almani tells you, his eyes intense. But it is your voice and your body that makes the journey real. Without them, you are just a signpost. A griot must be a fire. Your training becomes intensely physical. You move beyond the stool and the kora and into the realm of performance theory. First, your voice. You thought you knew how to speak, but Almani breaks it all down and rebuilds it from the ground up. You learn that your voice is not one instrument, but an entire orchestra. You spend hours practicing vocal modulation. For the villain, the sorcerer king Samaro Kante, You learn to speak from deep in your chest, a gravelly, menacing rumble that seems to vibrate the very air. To portray Sinjata's mother, Sagalin, you adopt a tone of quiet, unshakable dignity. For a frightened messenger, your voice becomes high-pitched and breathless. It's like becoming a modern voice actor, expected to produce a full cast of distinct characters on demand. Beyond tone, you master pacing. You learn to race through the catalog of warriors arriving for the Battle of Karina, your words tumbling over one another to build a sense of frantic energy and excitement. Then, for the moment Sinjata is betrayed by his half-brother, you learn to slow your speech down to a painful crawl, letting each word land with devastating weight. And most powerfully, you learn the art of silence. You learn to deliver a critical line of prophecy and then just stop, letting the pause hang in the hot night air, forcing the audience to lean in, to hold their collective breath, to absorb the full gravity of what was just said. Silence, you learn, can be louder than any shout. Next, your body must learn to speak. A griot does not tell a story with his mouth alone, Almani insists. You practice for hours by the river, using your reflection in the still water as a mirror. You learn to command your facial expressions, to transform from the joyful grin of a new father to the grief-stricken mask of a widow in the blink of an eye. Your gestures become a codified language. A wide, sweeping arc of your arm doesn't just mean over there. It paints a picture of a vast army stretching to the horizon. A hand slicing through the air is a cavalry charge. A slow, deliberate placement of your foot is the caution of a hunter stalking his prey. You are not just a narrator. You are an actor, a dancer, a mime, embodying every role in the epic drama. The final piece of the puzzle is the most unpredictable, the audience. A griot's performance is never a monologue. It is a dynamic, living dialogue. You learn to read the room, a skill more terrifying and difficult than any kora melody. As you perform, you must constantly scan the faces in the firelight. Are the children fidgeting? Is that elder in the front row starting to nod off? You learn to adjust on the fly. If you feel the energy dipping, you might seamlessly insert a short, body folktale to get a laugh, or have the kora launch into a blistering, virtuosic solo to wake everyone up. You also learn to actively engage them through call and response. You will make a declarative statement from the epic, and Sinjata was the greatest of all kings, and then shout Nam, a word that means yes, or it is so. The crowd is expected to roar Nam back at you, affirming the truth of the statement. This technique transforms them from passive spectators into active participants in a shared ritual. This is how your history has always been experienced, as a communal event. On festival nights, the entire village gathers in the central square, the darkness held back by a single, huge bonfire that sends sparks dancing up towards the star-dusted sky. This is their theater, their cinema, their university, and their church, all in one. Before a long performance, Almani has you perform a small, quirky ritual. You both drink a warm, sharp concoction of grated ginger and honey, which he claims keeps the voice clear and strong for hours. Then you touch your fingertips to the ground. For a moment, a gesture of respect to the earth and the ancestors whose stories you are about to channel. The very nature of these performances raises a question that performance theorists and anthropologists still debate. To what extent is a griot's performance a fixed, memorized recitation versus a dynamic improvisation? Are you just a scripted actor, faithfully reproducing a text you learned by rote? Or are you more like a jazz musician, who knows the chords and the melody but is free to improvise new solos and flourishes every time? The truth, you discover, is somewhere in between. The core narrative, the genealogies, the key praise songs, these are immutable, memorized verbatim. But the connective tissue, the jokes, the asides, the specific flourishes, this is where the master griot improvises, tailoring each performance to the mood of the night and the needs of the audience. The culmination of this training arrives during the Harvest Festival. This time, you are not a sideshow. You are a featured performer alongside Almani. For 3 hours, as the fire roars, you hold the village in your hands. You tell the story of Sinjata's rivalry with Samaro. When you describe the Sorcerer King, your voice is a terrifying growl, and children hide their faces in their mothers' laps. When you sing the praise song for Sanjata's loyal sister, your voice is filled with warmth and admiration, and the women of the village nod in approval. During the battle scene, you are a whirlwind of motion, your kora playing a frantic, percussive rhythm, your voice a torrent of action, your body mimicking the thrust of a spear and the fall of a warrior. At the end, you are drenched in sweat. Your throat is raw, and your body aches. But the village is utterly silent for a long moment, lost in the world you have created, before they erupt in cheers. You have done more than just remember history. You have made your people feel it in their bones. You have mastered the art of the telling. The roar of the crowd at the harvest festival echoes in your ears for days. You feel as though you have reached the pinnacle of your craft, a master performer, an artist. It is a dangerous feeling. Pride, as Almani is quick to remind you, is the enemy of memory. You were a large fire in a small square, he says, his words a splash of cold water. But out in the world, there are other fires. There are bonfires. There are infernos. Never forget that your knowledge is not your own. It belongs to the Jalea, the collective truth of all Griots. And the Jalea has ways of keeping its keepers honest. He is preparing you for the most terrifying and necessary part of a Griot's life, the public audit. You are about to face your peers that he announces that you will be traveling with him to the great septennial ceremony at Kingaba, a town many days' journey away. This is no mere village festival. Kingaba is the heartland of the Mande people, and its sacred hut, the Kamablin, is a site of immense historical importance. Every 7 years, the clans gather, and the hut's thatched roof is replaced in a massive ceremony. This event is a magnet for the most powerful chiefs and the most respected griots from across West Africa. It is a spiritual pilgrimage, a political summit, and for the Jeliu, it is the ultimate academic conference. It is here that the great oral traditions are recited, shared, and, most importantly, cross-examined. It is the crucible where a griot's reputation is either forged in fire or shattered into dust. As you travel, the weight of this knowledge presses on you. The confidence you felt performing for your own village evaporates, replaced by a gnawing anxiety. What if your version of a story is different? What if Almani's teachings contain a regional variation that the griots of another, more powerful, court consider an error? You spend the evenings of your journey in a state of frantic mental review, walking the paths of your memory palace, checking every connection, polishing every detail. It's like cramming for a final exam where the subject is the entire history of the world and the examiners are the most formidable scholars alive. This is the peer review system of an oral culture, and it is brutally public. There are no anonymous notes from a journal editor. There is only a respected elder standing up in front of everyone you've ever wanted to impress and declaring that your facts are wrong. You arrive in Kingaba, and the scale of it is overwhelming. The air is thick with the smoke of 1,000 cooking fires and the hum of a dozen languages. The sound of different kora styles, different drumming patterns, and different praise songs all blend into a chaotic, exhilarating symphony. You see, griots whose names are legendary, old men who are said to be able to recite for 7 days without sleeping, and you, a freshly trained apprentice, are about to perform on their stage. The moment comes during a gathering at your chief's host compound. Several powerful families are in attendance, each with their griot. Almani performs, and then he gestures to you. He has tasked you with reciting a specific, complex passage from the epic, the story of Taramakan Traore, one of Sanjata's greatest generals and the ancestor of a powerful clan present at the gathering. You begin, your voice tight at first, then steadying as you fall into the familiar cadence. You describe Taramakan's valor at the Battle of Karina, and you come to the part where Sanjata gives him a magnificent white stallion. You name the horse, a detail you stored long ago. As soon as the name leaves your lips, it happens. An old man across the fire, a renowned griot from the Traore clan itself, raises a hand. The music stops. A hush falls over the crowd. Your heart seizes in your chest. The etiquette of the challenge is precise and, in its own way, terrifyingly polite. The old griot does not shout that you are wrong. He speaks with a honeyed, deferential tone that only makes the challenge more potent. The young jelly sings with a beautiful voice. He begins, and his memory is long. But he names the horse Winddrinker. My own father, who learned from the Griot of Taramikan's own great-grandson, taught me the horse was called Cloud Dancer. Perhaps the young man could help an old man understand this difference, to polish the truth between us. Every eye is on you. Almani is silent, his face a stone mask. This is your test, and yours alone. Your mind races. You can't just say you're wrong. You must provide your proof, your citation. You close your eyes and sprint through your memory palace to the mental locus where you stored the lore of that specific general. The details are there, waiting. You bow your head respectfully to the old man. Esteemed father, you say, your voice surprisingly calm. Your wisdom is as deep as the Niger. The name Cloud Dancer is indeed a noble one. But my master, Almani, taught me that the horse was first owned by a merchant from the desert, who called it Wind Drinker because of its speed. When Sanjata gifted it to the great Taramikan, the general famously said, "A horse that can drink the wind is a fine prize, but I shall make him dance on the clouds of war." So it came to be known by both names, but its first name, its true name, was Wind Drinker. You even add a quirky detail of the etiquette you were taught, offering the man a cola nut from your pouch as a sign of respect. You have not simply corrected him. You have shown the depth of your knowledge, acknowledging his version while providing a richer, more detailed context for your own. You have demonstrated that you didn't just memorize a name, you memorized the story behind it. The old Griot's eyes widen slightly. He stares at you for a long moment, then a slow smile spreads across his face. He nods his head. The young man's library is well stocked indeed, he says to the crowd. His fire burns brightly. He takes the cola nut and sits. A murmur of approval ripples through the audience. The relief that floods through you is so powerful your knees feel weak. You have survived. You have been audited and certified. This entire interaction raises a question scholars of oral traditions still argue about. Did this system of public contest act as a powerful conservative force, preserving the original texts with high fidelity? Or did it create a competitive environment where griots might invent new, more dazzling details to win a challenge, causing the epics to grow and change over time? Looking at the smiling face of the old griot, you suspect the answer is both. It is a system of checks and balances that both preserves the core and allows for the poetic elaboration that keeps the stories alive. You have been welcomed into the great, continent-spanning guild, but you now understand with chilling clarity that your life will be one of perpetual defense of your memory. Your knowledge can never be allowed to rust. Your validation at the Festival of Kangaba feels like a graduation. You have proven your worth among the masters of the old ways. Your knowledge of the ancestors, the epics, and the intricate web of Mande tradition is sound. But the world is not a static pond. It is a flowing river, and new currents are always arriving. Almani tempers your celebration with a new lesson, pointing to a man in the market. He is a Marabu, a scholar from the north, dressed in flowing white robes. He is not listening to a storyteller. He is reading. He holds a small book, its pages filled with elegant, curling Arabic script. That, Almani says, his voice a low rumble, is the other library. The silent one. You must learn its language, too. This is your introduction to the powerful force of Islam and the written word that is its vessel. For centuries, it has been filtering down from the north with the salt and silk caravans, a religion of the book in a land of the voice. At first, you view this technology of writing with deep suspicion. It seems fragile. A book can be dropped in the river, consumed by termites, or turned to ash in a fire. The memory in your mind, however, is portable and permanent, safe from all but your own demise. Writing also feels rigid, the words frozen on the page, incapable of adapting to the mood of an audience or the needs of a moment. And it is secretive. In your world, history is a public performance, open to all. But this script can only be understood by a select few, a new caste of literate elites. It feels like a threat to the very essence of Jalea, a challenge to the griot's role as the sole keeper of the past. But Almani teaches you that the Mande way has never been to build walls against the river. It is to dig canals, to channel the new water, to nourish the old fields. To ignore the words of Allah is to be a deaf man in a storm, he says. To ignore the power of the pen is to be a blind man in the sun. We do not replace our knowledge. we add to it. And so begins the next phase of your education: syncretism, the art of blending two worlds into one. This has long been the way of your people. You learn that the great Munsas of Mali, like the fabulously wealthy Munsa Musa, were devout Muslims who built magnificent mosques in Timbuktu and Jinn. Yet, they did not abandon the old ways. They still sponsored the Griots, who sang the epics of their pagan ancestors, and they still drew legitimacy from Sanjata's magical heritage. Their Islam did not erase what came before. It was layered beautifully on top of it. Your training now involves weaving these new threads into your ancient tapestry. You begin with the genealogies. Al-Mani, with the help of a local scholar, teaches you the lineages of the prophets of Islam. You then learn the masterful art of grafting. You are taught, for instance, how to trace the lineage of a powerful Mande clan not just to its local founder, but all the way back to a prestigious figure from the heart of Islam, such as Bilal ibn Rabah, the first muezzin and a close companion of the Prophet Muhammad. This is a genealogical power move, connecting your patrons directly to the core of this powerful new faith. The epic of Sanjata itself begins to change in your mind. Al-Mani teaches you new versions, new verses that have entered the tradition. In these tellings, Sanjata's magical powers are reframed as blessings from Allah. The sorcerers he consults are now wise marabouts. The prophecies of his birth are divine portents. He is still the Lion King, the master of magic, but he is now also a pious man of destiny, chosen by the one God. This Islamized version doesn't necessarily replace the older, more animist one. It becomes another tool in your repertoire, one you can deploy for a courtly Muslim audience. You must now hold multiple, sometimes contradictory, versions of the same story in your memory palace, ready to be performed as the situation demands. You also learn entirely new stories. You memorize tales from the Quran, the life of the Prophet Muhammad, and the heroic deeds of the first caliphs. This new knowledge is stored in a new district of your mental village, one you build to resemble the great mudbrick mosque at Jinn. The quirky practical outcome of this blending is visible all around you. You see blacksmiths forging amulets that contain not just a lion's claw for courage, but also a tiny, tightly folded piece of paper with a Quranic verse inscribed on it. You learn praise songs that weave together the names of ancient Mande kings with the names of Islamic saints, seeing no contradiction. Both are sources of power and prestige. This process of cultural blending is a source of endless fascination and argument. Historians and theologians still debate the impact of Islam on the core Mande oral traditions. Did the integration of Islamic narratives enrich the tradition by connecting it to a wider global culture and giving it new spiritual depth? Or did it begin a slow process of erosion, gradually supplanting the older, pagan elements of the epics and devaluing the pre-Islamic past in favor of a new, foreign-derived prestige? Standing at the crossroads, learning both traditions, you feel the tension of this debate in your own mind. You feel the pull of the ancient magic and the power of the new faith. You come to realize that being able to navigate both worlds makes you exponentially more valuable. You are becoming intellectually and culturally bilingual. For the elders in a remote village, you can perform the old songs, full of river spirits and talking animals. For the chief and his sophisticated, literate court, you can demonstrate your knowledge of Islamic law and poetry. You can switch between cosmologies, tailoring your performance and your counsel with incredible precision. Your final exam in this new subject comes when a caravan arrives, led by a wealthy merchant from a northern city, a man from a culture where Islam is more orthodox and the old Mande ways are seen as rustic superstitions. Your chief wants to honor him. He calls on you to provide the evening's entertainment. The pressure is immense. A performance too rooted in the old magic might offend the guest. A performance too Islamic might seem like a rejection of your own heritage, offending your chief. You must walk a tightrope. That night, you step forward. You do not begin with the kora. Instead, you begin by chanting a short, beautiful verse from the Quran that you have memorized, a verse about hospitality and brotherhood. The visiting merchant's eyebrows rise in surprise and approval. Then, you pick up your kora and launch into a story from the Sanjata epic. But you carefully choose a chapter that highlights Sanjata's wisdom and justice rather than his magic. You tell the story of how he established the social order, assigning each clan their role, and you frame it as an act of divinely inspired social engineering, creating a perfect society under God's watchful eye. You have woven the two worlds together seamlessly. You have honored the guest without dishonoring your ancestors. The merchant is impressed, and your chief is beaming with pride. You have navigated the treacherous currents of cultural change, proving that the old songs can harmonize beautifully with the new words, just as you master the delicate dance of weaving the old Mande traditions with the newer threads of Islam. A shadow falls over your world. It is a different kind of shadow than you have ever known. It is not the shadow of a rival empire or a new faith that can be absorbed and synthesized. This shadow is cast by men with pale skin, strange clothes, and weapons that spit fire with terrifying speed. They are the French, the Tubabu, and they have come not to blend, but to rule. They bring with them a new and uncompromising power, a magic more potent and rigid than any you have yet encountered. Bureaucracy. Their arrival signals a profound crisis for you and for every griot. Your entire world, your very reason for being, is built on the authority of the spoken word and the sanctity of memory. But these French administrators carry their memory on paper. They have maps, censuses, legal codes, and historical records all written down, and in their eyes, a single sentence in ink outweighs 1,000 years of oral history. You are about to witness a clash of civilizations fought not on a battlefield, but in the very definition of truth itself. The threat becomes apparent in countless ways. The French establish their own schools, pulling children away from the traditional apprenticeships. While you are trying to teach a boy the praise songs of his ancestors, a French schoolmaster is teaching him to recite the names of the departments of France. The history of Charlemagne and the Gauls is presented as world history, while the epic of Sanjata is dismissed as local folklore. You are no longer the primary educator of the young. You are now in competition with a foreign system designed to create loyal colonial subjects, a system that implicitly teaches them that their own culture is inferior. Worse still is how they handle your sacred texts. European ethnographers and administrators, driven by a mixture of genuine curiosity and a desire to understand the people they are trying to control, begin to write down your stories. An administrator might listen to Almani recite a part of the epic and diligently scribble it down in his notebook. But the act of writing it down kills it. It freezes one performance, one version, and calls it the definitive text. It strips the story of its music, of the emotion in the performer's voice, of the interactive energy of the crowd. Your living, breathing, ever-adapting art form is being captured, chloroformed, and pinned like a butterfly to a display board, labeled and categorized for a foreign museum. The political reality is even more brutal. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the French solidify their control over the region they now call French Sudan through so-called pacification campaigns. The ancient power of the Mande chiefs is systematically dismantled. Chiefs who cooperate are kept as puppets. Those who resist are exiled or killed. Your role as a praise singer and political advisor becomes fraught with peril. Singing the praises of a deposed chief is now an act of sedition. Many griots fall silent, while others make the bitter choice to become praise singers for the French administrators themselves, lauding their efficiency and justice in a humiliating display of submission. You witness the death of your world's logic in a single, devastating afternoon. A dispute arises over the right to gather firewood in a particular forest that lies between two villages. For generations, your family of griots has been the arbiter of this boundary, a line established by an oath between two ancestors 5 generations ago. You and a now aging Almani are called before the local French commandant, a young man with a severe haircut and an air of impatient authority. You present your testimony, reciting the history, the genealogy, the story of the oath. It is a detailed and unshakable piece of oral law. The commandant listens with a thin, condescending smile. When you are finished, he simply unrolls a large map drawn by a French military cartographer. "This is all very charming," he says in stilted, formal language. "But my map, which is a scientific document, clearly indicates the boundary is here." He points to a straight, arbitrary line on the paper, a line that cuts the disputed forest in half. Your stories are lovely, but this is a document. This is reality. In that moment, you feel the foundation of your universe crack. Centuries of meticulously preserved knowledge, the entire library in your head, rendered worthless by a line drawn on a piece of paper by a man who had probably never even set foot in the forest he was dividing. The administrator's obsession with fixed, written data is a constant source of friction. You see it in his attempts to conduct a census, forcing the fluid Monday system of praise names and titles into a rigid list of fixed surnames for tax purposes. A quirky but profound misunderstanding of your culture's identity. This entire colonial project of documentation raises questions that still haunt your people. Anthropologists and post-colonial theorists fiercely debate the legacy of these early European ethnographers. Were they dedicated preservationists, saving your epics from being forgotten in a world of overwhelming change? Or were they simply agents of colonial power, collecting your culture as a way to understand it, catalog it, and therefore control it more effectively? Almani believes it is both, but he sees the damage more than the good. They want to know our stories, he tells you bitterly one night, but they refuse to learn our truths. The library in your head, the one you spent a lifetime building, has just been declared obsolete. The weight of this new reality is crushing, but that night, there is a quiet knock on your door. It is the chief, the one whose authority was so casually dismissed by the commandant. His face is grim. He has not come to ask you to represent him before the French. He knows that is useless. He has come for another reason. Jelly, he says to you, his voice a low whisper. Forget the Frenchman. Forget his maps. Sing me the story of the oath. Sing it for me and my sons, so that we do not forget who we are, so that the paper does not erase our memory. And in that moment, your purpose crystallizes anew. Your role is no longer to be the living law of the land. The colonizer's paper has stolen that function. Your new, more sacred role is to be the keeper of the hidden truth, the guardian of a cultural identity that is under siege. You are no longer performing to legitimize the power of chiefs, but to fuel the quiet, stubborn resistance of a people, determined not to be erased. The shadow has fallen, but in that shadow, your fire has found a new and defiant reason to burn. The defiant act of keeping the memory alive in the shadow of the French becomes your life's work. You are no longer just Almani's apprentice. You age, you mature, and as the years pass and Almani's voice fades into the earth he so revered, you become the master griot. You live through the Great Rupture, the moment in the mid-20th century, when the French flags are lowered and the vibrant new flag of an independent Mali is raised. For a moment, it seems the old ways will be restored to their former glory. The new nationalist leaders champion the epic of Sanjata as proof of a glorious, pre-colonial past. Your voice, the griot's voice, is suddenly in demand, a symbol of national pride. But the world does not move backward. The new government is built on the French bureaucratic model, with a written constitution and formal laws. Your practical function as a lawmaker and judge is not restored. You are revered as a cultural treasure, but you are no longer essential to the state's daily function. It is a strange, hollowed-out kind of honor. And then comes the new magic, a force far more pervasive and transformative than even the colonizer's pen. It begins as a crackle in the air. A wealthy merchant in the village acquires a transistor radio, and one day you hear it, the sound of a kora, clear as day, followed by the voice of a griot from the capital city of Bamako. The voice is disembodied, stripped of the performers, sweat and gestures, but it is everywhere at once, pouring into homes and shops miles away from the source. It is a miracle and a violation. Your art, which has always been about presence and the sacred space between performer and audience, has been unmoored from its body. Soon, you are invited to the city to perform for the national radio station, singing into a strange metal flower in a silent, padded room. It is the loneliest performance of your life, yet it reaches more people than you could have imagined in a lifetime of village festivals. The changes accelerate, each new invention a fresh challenge to your tradition. Cassette tapes arrive in the markets. Suddenly, a performance is no longer an ephemeral event that lives only in the memory of those who were present. It is an object. It can be bought, sold, copied, and worn out. This brings a little money, a new form of patronage. But it also means you lose control. A song intended for a solemn ceremony can now be blasted from a tinny speaker in a market stall, its sacred purpose lost. You hear tales of Malian musicians from Griot families, like the noble Salif Keita, who bravely broke caste tradition to become a singer, or kora masters like Tamani Diabate, whose music is now sold on discs in Paris and Tokyo. Their art is reaching the entire world, but you wonder what is lost when a praise song for a king is edited into a 4-minute track for a foreign audience. As you grow old, the world grows. Ever stranger, a young, eager journalist from Europe comes to your village to make a film about you. You watch as your life and art are framed through a camera's lens, edited, and set to a dramatic soundtrack. The result is beautiful, but it feels like a story about a story, a copy of a copy. Then your own grandnephew, home from his studies in the city, shows you the most bewildering magic of all, a small, glowing tablet. On its screen, you see a video of a young griot performing at a festival in America. The audience is mostly white, clapping enthusiastically, if slightly off the beat. He shows you websites dedicated to kora tuning and online forums where people debate the meaning of the epic's verses. The library in your head, once a private and sacred space, is now being uploaded piece by piece to a global, digital cloud, accessible to anyone with a password. It's like discovering your secret memory village has become a bustling, chaotic, international tourist destination. The clash between your ancient training and this new reality creates 1,000 quirky absurdities. You see a teenager using a mobile phone app to tune his kora, a process that once required years of training the ear. A cousin who has emigrated to France asks you to settle a genealogical dispute with his neighbor via a flickering, pixelated video call, the solemnity of the occasion hilariously undermined by a bad internet connection. You have to create a new, locked room in your memory palace just for your various passwords. Ethnomusicologists and cultural critics now debate whether this globalization represents a vibrant evolution or a terminal dilution of your art. Is a kora solo on a Spotify playlist, stripped of its history and social function, still an authentic expression of Jalila? Or is it just another form of pleasant background noise, another commodified product for foreign consumption? You must train your own apprentice now, a bright-eyed girl named Bintu, and you find that your curriculum must change. You still make her bleed over the kora strings until her calluses form. You still guide her through the painstaking construction of her own memory palace. But you also have to teach her things Almani could never have dreamed of. You teach her how to read a recording contract. You teach her how to deal with journalists, how to explain the meaning of a proverb to a foreign documentarian. You teach her that her audience may one day be not a few dozen people around a fire, but a few thousand unseen listeners on the internet. One evening, you sit and watch Bintu perform. She is playing an electric kora, its notes flowing through an amplifier. A small crowd is gathered, but her performance is also being streamed live from her nephew's phone. The technology is almost unrecognizable. The form is radically different. But then she begins to sing. She sings a praise song for your village chief, and the names of the ancestors are the same ancient names you learned as a boy. She tells a chapter from the epic of Sanjata and the story of the Buffalo Woman's strength is as powerful and moving as it was when Almani first told it to you. She is holding the attention of the people in front of her and, perhaps, a stranger 1,000 miles away. You close your eyes and realize the fundamental truth. The library is not being erased. It is being digitized. The tradition is not dying. It is molting, shedding an old skin to reveal something new and dazzling underneath. The fire Almani lit in you, and his master lit in him, continues to burn, its light now refracted through prisms you never knew existed, casting its glow into the farthest corners of a new and bewildering world. You sit in the shade of the great baobab tree, the same tree where Almani drilled you as a boy until your voice was raw and your mind ached. You are now the old man, your face a map of the century. You have witnessed, your hands gnarled and knotted around the smooth wood of a walking stick instead of a kora's neck. Your apprentice, Bintu, is the one who now travels to the festivals, her performances streamed on glowing rectangles that still feel like witchcraft to you. Your life's work is done. The library you built inside your mind is full, its corridors walked a million times. And now, in the quiet twilight of your years, you have time to reflect on the nature of that library, on its lasting echo in a world that has changed beyond recognition. You have lived to see your craft validated by the very people who once dismissed it. The new grandfathers in their offices in Paris and New York at an organization called UNESCO have declared the Monday Charter and the Epic of Sanjata to be a part of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity, a treasure for everyone. It is a strange and beautiful irony. The knowledge that the French commandant once dismissed as a charming story is now protected by a global charter, recognized as being as valuable as the stone temples and great pyramids of other lands. You chuckle at the thought. The paper keepers finally understood that some treasures cannot be stored on a shelf. What is the difference, you wonder, between the memory in your head and the memory in Binta's glowing tablet? The tablet's memory is perfect, flawless, and infinite. It can hold every version of the epic, every genealogical chart, every historical date with cold, hard accuracy. But its memory is inert. It holds facts, but it does not hold meaning. It has no wisdom, no warmth, no agenda. It cannot read the room. It cannot look a troubled chief in the eye and choose the one story, the one proverb, that will heal a rift or inspire courage. Your memory, the library built of flesh and blood and rhythm, is flawed. It forgets. It embellishes. It changes with every telling. But it is alive. It is a memory that has been filtered through a human heart, curated by a moral conscience. That, you realize, is the enduring power of the griot. In an age drowning in raw, unfiltered data, the griot is not just a hard drive. The griot is the search engine, the curator, the ethicist, and the artist who makes the data sing. There is a belief among your people, a quirky and comforting tidbit of folk wisdom, that when a griot dies, a library burns to the ground. You have always known this to be true. The specific connections, the unique flourishes, the particular version of history that lived in Almani, it burned with him. And the library that is you will soon burn as well. But the fire's embers are past. On. The heat remains. The most important stories, the ones that give a people their soul, are carried forward in the hands of the next generation. This is the griot's true immortality. The forward-thinking scholars, the new marabouts of the digital age, now speculate on the future of your craft. As the world becomes more saturated with cold, impersonal data, they ask, will there be a renewed hunger for authentic, human-centered narratives? Could the ancient techniques you have mastered, the memory palace, the art of performance, the ethical curation of knowledge, actually offer a model for navigating the overwhelming information jungle of the future? You don't know about all that. It sounds like the kind of question a man with too many books and not enough stories would ask. You find a gentle humor in it all. After a lifetime spent desperately trying not to forget, you are now at an age where you find a certain peace in forgetting where you left your favorite tea bowl you called Bintu over. She sits at your feet, just as you once sat at Almani's. You don't teach her a new song. You tell her what he told you, and what you now know in your bones. The kora, the genealogies, the memory palace, they are all just tools. You tell her, your voice a dry whisper like rustling leaves. They are the gourd, but the story is the water. Your job is not just to carry the water. It is to know when people are thirsty. It is to make them want to drink. Never forget that. She looks at you, her eyes full of the same fire and fear you once had, and she nods. She understands. The torch has been passed. Later, as the sun bleeds across the horizon, you hear the faint, clear notes of her kora from across the compound. It is the sound of your own memory, echoing into the future. It is the sound of the library, staying open long after you have gone. And you feel a profound sense of peace. Your story is not ending. It is simply being told by another voice. And now, your own long day's journey is ending. The story of the griot, of a memory so powerful it could hold a whole world, fades into the quiet of your room. The great savanna of Mali, with its shimmering heat and its ancient baobab trees, recedes into the soft darkness behind your eyelids. Let go of the names, the dates, the intricate pathways of that mental village. The weight of that knowledge is not yours to carry any longer. It is being held safely by others, passed down through generations, a quiet, an unending song. Feel the weight of your own body, a gentle, pleasant heaviness sinking into the mattress beneath you. Notice the soft weight of the blanket over you, a comforting pressure that speaks of safety and rest. The air in the room is cool on your skin, and the slow, rhythmic sound you hear is only your own breathing, a quiet tide pulling you out into the deep, peaceful ocean of sleep. Your only task now is to let it carry you away. The story is over. Rest now,